Hey guys, Chris here for the Volt Vlog, and I wanted to talk about this new measure that's coming out in California regarding e-bikes. Well, it's actually a proposed measure. It's not coming out yet. It still hasn't passed. I am a California native, so this hits close to home. It does affect me and my family, and I certainly have my bias on this and my perspective on this, but I wanted to bring it to your attention so that you can potentially become aware of it if you're not already aware of it, and reach out to your representatives to let them know what you think about this measure, whether you're for it or against it. The same assembly member that has issued this measure has actually proposed in the past, a couple years ago, a rebate initiative that would say that under this improvement of air quality, what we're wanting to do in the state of California, it would be good to provide some type of rebate, some tax incentives for individuals who are choosing to buy electric bicycles. So this assembly member is not anti-bikes and they're not anti-e-bikes. They are doing good for e-bikes and riders. They're trying to usher in this new era of bikes. But this new measure that is being proposed, I think, counteracts this movement that our state is hoping to get people into, this clean air initiative and alternative modes of transportation. This will make it harder and more strenuous, and actually, I think, just make things more complicated in an area that already kind of seems like there's a lot of unknowns. So anyway, let's address what it is. So we've got the existing law that governs our use of e-bikes in the state of California, and that law is wrapped around three classes of what is considered to be an e-bike, and I'll show you what those are here. Our three classes are centered around e-bikes that are distinct from a motorcycle or a moped. And the way that they are distinct from those other modes of transportation are basically twofold. You have operable pedals, meaning you can move the bike forward. You can propel it forward with just human effort and pedals. And if it has a motor on it, that's kind of the requirement for it to be considered an e-bike and not a bike. But that motor needs to have less than 750 watts of continuous power. Now, it says less than, which would probably mean it needs to be 749 watts, but who's measuring really that closely? So most manufacturers are making 750 watt motors. If you've ever wondered why are so many bikes on the market 750 watts and below, well, this is why, because some states have limited the amount that you can actually have. In fact, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that's a federal thing here in the United States. But in the state of California, I know for sure it's 750 watts or below. That's what it takes to be an e-bike. And then all e-bikes should fall under either a class 1, class 2, or class 3 distinction. If it doesn't fall under one of these, it's not a legal e-bike, and it will need to be classified as some other mode of transportation. So a class 1 is what we just talked about here, right? It has that motor, 750 watts, has a pedal that will propel you forward, and it only provides power if you're pedaling. So that's a class 1, up to 20 miles per hour. You have to be pedaling to get any power from the motor. Once you achieve 20 miles an hour or go over 20 miles an hour, which is very possible to do, to go over 20 miles an hour, the motor must cease to provide power. A class 2 also has that same maximum speed limit, but in addition to the pedal assist going up to 20 miles an hour, you can actually have a thumb throttle that will provide power without any pedaling. And that thumb throttle needs to be powered by human effort. You can't turn on some type of regulator or some type of cruise control. The throttle must be held down by human effort, and you can release it to cease having power from it. Once you reach 20 miles an hour, the throttle needs to cut off. Even if you're holding down on the throttle, it needs to cut off any assistance at 20 miles per hour. That's a class 2. And a class 3 can have pedal assist up to 28 miles an hour, and it must cease providing assistance if you're pedaling once you reach 28 miles per hour. And the thumb throttle can still be at play here, but it must cease to provide power at 20 miles per hour. Thumb throttles cannot, in the state of California, take your bike past 20 miles per hour, at least not legally. And if you are pedaling, you can go up to 28 miles per hour, and it needs to cease the assistance at that limit, and that would be a class 3. Now, a class 1 and a class 2, anyone in the state of California can ride these right now. You do not need to be a certain age, and you do not need any type of special licensing. The class 3 distinction is different, and it tacks on a couple of extra rules and regulations. So a class 3 must be at least 16 years old to ride it. You have to wear a helmet. There are a lot of cyclists out there, adults on class 3 e-bikes, that don't realize that in the state of California, you must wear a helmet in order to operate that legally. And you must not transport passengers. You shouldn't have riders with you on that bike. There are a lot of manufacturers who are making bikes and selling attachments for children to ride with them. If your child is riding with you, you must cap your bike classification at a class 1 and a class 2. And there are little nuances involved as well, that you need to have your bike clearly labeled, whatever class it is, class 1, class 2, and class 3. This causes some confusion because some bikes allow you to regulate whether it is a class 2 or a class 3 bike within the settings of the bike or an app. And so if you are going to take a child with you as a passenger, you need to change in your settings before you do that ride, cap it at a class 2, and then also make sure that you change the label that is on your bike. This new measure, however, is going to change this and say that any child under the age of 12 cannot ride any class of e-bike in the state of California. If you are under 12, e-bikes are off limits for you, which again, I understand the call for safety, but I can assure you that there are 12-year-olds, or I should say 11, 10-year-olds out there that will be able to reach speeds of 20 miles per hour on a standard bike. If they're going down a hill, they will certainly go over that 20 mile an hour mark. So it seems a little bit reactionary as I read this bill to not even start this conversation with altering the classification of e-bikes, or maybe even ushering in a lower speed e-bike, potentially putting speed limits on e-bikes for younger riders, to simply prohibit all riders under the age of 12 from riding any class of e-bike. It seems a little extreme and a little reactionary. Bicycle injuries in the state of California amongst children are always at the top of the list. So bicycles continue to result in more childhood injuries than any other consumer product except for the automobile. Okay, so bicycles cause injuries, not just e-bikes. Of course, we don't want to see more injuries and more accidents. That I'm not saying that we shouldn't have safety, we shouldn't have regulations and laws in place to help protect younger riders and even motorists on the road. Motorists don't want to be involved in these types of accidents. It's very tragic to be a motorist that's involved in a collision with a bicyclist. It really, really is horrific and a terrifying experience for most people involved. Nobody wants that to take place, which is why I would propose and I would recommend that our assembly members, and you can have your own take on this, that our assembly members would work to improve the safety of our bike lanes, and our bike paths should be improved and increased in order to provide safer means of transportation for children that are on e-bikes and for adults who are on e-bikes alike. Because as I've showed in some of my videos, and as many of you are aware, especially if you live in the state of California, our bicycle lanes in the state of California are horrible. They are tiny. They are often filled up with cars that are parked in them. Our state workers who work on the roads, who work on our gas and water lines, service workers constantly, because it's one of the only places they can park their work truck and vehicle, they're constantly parking on the sidewalk, blocking the sidewalk and blocking the bike lane, so that the only way to get around them is to merge into traffic in order to make your way around. As somebody who commutes to work every day, I am very, very concerned about my safety my entire way to my office if I am on a public road. The bike path that I take, perfectly fine, perfectly safe, but there's really only one bike path in my city that runs right down the middle of the city. If you want to get anywhere in the town, you have to venture off into the public roadways, and those are very unsafe. So I would say the state of California, our representatives, if they can spend far more of their effort and resources on improving the safety and infrastructure of our bike lanes, I think we would see a drastic shift and change in the amount of vehicle and bicycle collisions that are taking place. Regardless of the speed that our bicycles are going, we're going to continue to have some of the highest accidents reported in this state. We have terrible bike lanes that are very unsafe. And if we can improve those, I think it would go much further than this, especially when we want to get kids out of the house. We want to get kids riding bikes. We want to get people using alternative modes of transportation in the state of California. So to regulate and to remove this from children and even adults, as this bill is written, adults who don't have a driver's license will not be permitted to use an e-bike, which again, as an adult, I can use a non-e-bike and achieve speeds greater than a 1 and 2 classification e-bike. So anyway, guys, I didn't want to get too far into the weeds in this one. Just wanted to bring it out there in front of you. What are your guys' thoughts? Are you for this? Are you against this? I'm sure everybody wants safety for children and adults alike, but do we need more regulations or better roads? What do you think?